Alexander Grant, one of the youngest billionaires in the country, had spent the last 3 days drowning in meetings, investors' dinners, and endless corporate pressure. His private jet was supposed to return late at night, but an unexpected storm rolling across the east coast forced the pilot to turn back. Earlier than scheduled, most people would have been irritated by the disruption. But for Alexander, it felt like a blessing. He had been missing home, missing peace, missing the one person who always made him feel grounded, his adoptive mother, Marilyn. As the car pulled into the long driveway of the Grant mansion, he noticed something unusual. No lights in the front yard, no staff at the door, no sign of his wife, Elena, who normally insisted on greeting him at the entrance like a perfect hostess. Inside, the mansion was dim and strangely quiet. The kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful. Something about it felt tense, thick, unsettling. Alexander slipped off his coat, setting down his bag without making a sound. He didn't want to wake anyone if they were asleep. But then he froze. There were voices, low, shaky, distressed. He recognized one immediately, Marilyn's soft, aging voice. But the other voice, sharp, irritated, almost harsh, belonged to Elena. His eyebrows knitted together. Elena rarely talked in that tone, and she definitely never used it in front of him. He moved slowly down the hallway, each step measured, cautious. The marble floor reflected his shadow as he walked, the dim light stretching it out like a warning. As he neared the living room, he caught snippets of the conversation. Marilyn's trembling voice. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to." Then Elena's voice, cutting her off. "Just stop. You always ruin everything. I told you not to touch anything in this house." Alexander's eyes widened. His heart tightened. This wasn't normal. This wasn't right. He stepped closer, pressing himself against the wall to remain unseen. From the corner of the doorway, he could see Marilyn bending down, struggling to pick up broken glass from the floor. Her hands were shaking. She looked frightened. Elena stood over her, arms folded, her face twisted in frustration and superiority, an expression Alexander had never seen on her before. In that moment, something inside him snapped. All the exhaustion of the last few days vanished, replaced with disbelief and anger. He finally stepped forward, silent, controlled, but ready to confront whatever he had just walked into. Alexander stepped into the living room, his presence commanding yet calm. The room fell silent instantly. Elena jerked upright, her face draining of color as soon as she realized he had been watching. Marilyn, who was still crouched on the floor, looked up with wide, frightened eyes. "Alex, you're home early," Elena whispered, forcing a shaky smile. Her voice trembled, not with concern, but with fear of being caught. Alexander didn't respond to her. His eyes were fixed on Marilyn's trembling hands, a few small cuts forming where the sharp edges had pricked her skin. He crossed the room in 2 long strides and gently took her arm. "Mom, are you okay?" he asked softly. Marilyn shook her head quickly, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, darling, it's nothing. Just a little accident. I dropped the vase." But Alexander had lived his whole life reading people. Marilyn could never hide her emotions well. She was too pure, too sincere. And right now, her eyes reflected fear, not clumsiness. "Elena," he said finally, turning to his wife, "why is she picking up broken glass alone, and why does she look terrified?" Elena opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her fingers started fidgeting, a nervous habit she couldn't control. She just dropped it. "I was only telling her to be careful," Elena said, trying to steady her voice. "You know she gets forgetful sometimes." Alexander watched her carefully. Her explanation sounded neat, polished, too polished, like something she had practiced. Meanwhile, Marilyn stayed silent. She lowered her head as if trying to shrink herself, as if being invisible would protect her. Alexander kneeled beside her again, helping her up. "Mum, you're not a servant," he said gently. "You don't have to pick anything up, ever." Her lips trembled. She wanted to say something, but Elena quickly cut in, stepping forward with sudden confidence. "Alex, you're overreacting. He held up a hand. "Elena, enough." That single word hit her harder than a shout. She stiffened. He continued, voice low and controlled. I saw your face, I heard your tone. That wasn't concern, that was something else. Elena blinked rapidly, trying to regain control of the situation. I'm your wife, you should trust me. He stared at her, his jaw tightening. I do trust, but I trust my eyes more. The room grew painfully silent. Marilyn tugged lightly on his sleeve. Please, Alex, let it go, she whispered, her voice cracking. But he couldn't, because something told him this wasn't the first time, and he was determined to find out the truth. Alexander guided Marilyn gently toward the sofa, helping her sit down. Her hands were still trembling, and he noticed the faint redness around her eyes, like she had cried earlier. The sight made something inside him tighten painfully. Elena, he said again, his voice quieter but far sharper, tell me exactly what happened before I walked in. Elena crossed her arms defensively, her chin lifting. I already told you. She dropped the vase. I just got upset because it was expensive. That's all. Alexander laughed once, short, humorless. You got upset? Upset enough to make her look like this? His adoptive mother stared at her lap, twisting her fingers together nervously. She avoided both their eyes, as if afraid that speaking would make things worse. Elena, I've never seen you talk to her that way, Alexander continued. So either this is the first time, or it isn't. Elena's jaw tightened. You're turning nothing into drama. You always do this. He ignored the deflection. Mom, he said softly, did she yell at you? Did she threaten you? Marilyn shook her head instantly, too quickly. No, she didn't threaten me. She was just frustrated. It was my fault. Alexander frowned deeply. Marilyn never blamed herself like this. Something was off. He touched her hand gently. You don't have to protect anyone, he whispered. Elena's patience snapped. For God's sake, Alex. She interferes. She tries to help, but only makes things worse. She's messy, slow, forgetful. Stop, Alexander said sharply. But Elena didn't stop. She's old, Alex. She needs to understand this isn't her home. She's a guest. That's where you're wrong, Alexander cut in. She is my mother. This is her home, more than it will ever be yours if you keep talking like that. Elena froze. Those words hit her like a slap. Marilyn, panic rising in her chest, whispered shakily, Alex, please don't fight because of me. He turned to her. We're not fighting because of you. We're fighting because I failed to see what's been happening. Elena stepped back, her voice rising. So what, you think I'm abusing her? That I'm some monster now? Alexander stood up slowly, his height suddenly overwhelming the room. I don't think it. I saw it. Silence swallowed the space again. Elena's face twisted with anger and desperation. You weren't supposed to be home yet, she muttered. And in that single sentence, everything fell into place. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't the first time. This was a secret that had been hiding behind his back, and tonight it finally stepped into the light. Alexander stood in the center of the room, his expression cold, colder than Elena had ever seen in their entire marriage. The weight of what she had revealed hung in the air like a heavy curtain. Marilyn sat on the couch, her hands in her lap, looking small and fragile, as if she blamed herself for the chaos around her. Elena, Alexander said quietly, how long has this been happening? Elena's eyes darted nervously. I don't know what you're talking about. He stepped closer, voice controlled but razor sharp. How long have you been treating my mother like this when I wasn't home? Her shoulders stiffened. That was the moment she realized she couldn't lie her way out anymore. She exhaled angrily, arms crossed. She gets in the way, Alex, she snapped. She listens through doors. She rearranges things. She acts like she owns this place. I tried to be patient, but she raised me, Alexander interrupted firmly. She worked 3 jobs to pay for my school. She protected me when I had nothing. Everything I own, every business, every dollar, I owe to her sacrifice. Elena's face twisted with frustration. So what? She's not your real mother. Marilyn flinched. Alexander's jaw clenched hard. My real mother, he said slowly, is the woman who fed me when I was hungry, who stayed awake all night when I was sick, who believed in my future when the world laughed at me. His voice shook with emotion. She is more real than anyone else in my life. Elena's face paled. She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Alexander took a deep breath, and when he spoke again, His tone had changed. No anger, no shouting, just finality. "Elena, pack your things." Her eyes widened. "What? Alex, you can't be serious." "I am," he said. "You disrespected the one person I would give my life for, and you did it behind my back." She rushed toward him, grabbing his arm. "We can fix this. I'll apologize. He gently pulled his arm away. "Respect isn't something you learn in one night. It's something you show every day, and you've shown me who you really are." Tears streamed down her face. "You're choosing her over me." He looked toward Marilyn, his mother, who sat quietly, fighting her own tears. "I'm choosing the person who has always chosen me." Security arrived silently. Elena's cries echoed through the hallway as she was escorted out. Alexander sat beside Marilyn, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "This house," he whispered, "will always be yours, and I will never let anyone hurt you again." And for the first time that night, Marilyn allowed herself to breathe.